Hey, I've got a topic I want to talk about this week.
Sure. What is it?
Mega Power Frunk.
Wait, how did you discover my drag name?
Hi, toddlers. Welcome to Talking to Todd, weekly podcast with Dewayne Johnson and Todd Friends, where failure is always an option. Thanks for joining us. Hey, Todd.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Better than you.
Yeah, we'll get to that later.
So you said in the cold open that you had a topic you wanted to talk about. What was it? What is that again?
Mega Power Frunk
Okay.
and the P Frunk All Stars. No? Is that not how this works?
Could be. What is that? Is that a Japanese anime thing?
Mega Power Frunk.
Yeah. They're five separate and they combine together.
They combine into one
Frunk.
mega. All these little different frunks.
Yeah.
And then they get a power frunk and then they all combine. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So no, what is this?
Power frunks activate.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what is it? What is this in response? What actually is this? Although, by the way, I am going to trademark Mega Power Frunk anime right now while you're working on it. Go ahead.
Because of my browsing habits, I was fed an article about the new Ford F-150 Lightning.
Oh, yes. Being a truck owner, I know all about. Yeah.
Well,
sure.
Yes. Yeah. Particularly a Ford truck owner, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but this is an electric truck, and you know where your engine is in the front.
Yes.
They don't have that. So they created this, I don't know, think the little hatch in a VW Bug, right in the front where you can store stuff because the engine's in the back. They've got that now on the front of this Ford F-150. And you can put the thing that raised, and my guess is the reason that this hit my news feed was because you can fit two full sets of golf clubs in there.
I would have never thought about that because the word power was in there. So I would never put my golf clubs in anything that's where there's no power in those clubs.
So anyway, I was I'm reading this article, I'm reading about this electric pickup truck and texted you about it. And then the first thing that came to my mind was I should call Ward Lenz. I mean, you remember Ward. Ward's part of our fantasy league. But Ward is an electric vehicle expert. I should ask Ward what he thinks of this, what he knows about this.
Wait, he's an expert on this?
Yes.
We don't do a lot of experts on this show. I mean, we have some. Ooh, this is ramping this up. Good point. Hey, that's a thought. We're at episode 98, and you're thinking now that if we have a topic, we should get somebody that knows something about the topic on the show. That's an interesting way to go. I'd never considered that.
It's never stopped us before.
Oh, well, yeah, good point.
So anyway, I did. I messaged him, and God love him, Ward Lenz agreed to come on this podcast and talk to us about electric vehicles. So the official introduction, Ward Lenz is...
Just one thing.
Yes.
That tells me he's never listened to this before. If he agreed to come on it, he's clearly not listened to it, but that's cool. You know what? That's in our favor. All right, go ahead. Do the official introduction before he figures out what's going on.
Ward is executive director of the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association. He has a degree in journalism and mass communication from Drake University, my alma mater. He's actually known Amy longer than he's known me. Fun fact. He is the former director of North Carolina's State Energy Office, and at one point, he was my boss at the DNR's Energy Office. He is also a founding member of FEAST, which is Former Energy Associates Standing Tall. And he's an off and on owner in our fantasy football league and this year's league champion. Welcome, Ward Lenz, to Talking to Todd. Hey, Ward.
Hey, good evening.
I bet you have never gotten an introduction like that before.
I've not had an introduction like that before. Thank you so much. I feel honored.
I want to bring up one thing here real quick. I'm thinking this through. By the way, hey champ. I'm just wondering, do we have a league rules? Like, we now have the top 3 finishers in our fantasy football league this season all on the same podcast. Is there like a continuity of league thing that we're violating by doing that? No,
a collusion rule. Let me check with the commissioner.
Yeah.
No, we're good.
Cool. Do we have a quorum of votes though?
Oh, we don't run the league that way. No.
Okay.
No. It's the commissioner and sometimes the associate commissioner pretty much make the decisions.
A majority of those voting constitutes a quorum.
Okay.
And there's one vote.
Good by me.
Does the commissioner get paid?
Oh, hell no.
Only in grief.
And there's a ton of that.
Okay, so apparently Ward may or may not know some things now about electric vehicles. Okay, yeah, I see that now. So I'm now concerned. We probably should have done a heck of a lot more research to. I mean, you went all in on the Frunk, and then we brought in an EV expert. So let's go. Take it away.
So, well, let's start with something really easy. Ward, I don't know how many electric vehicles have you owned? More than
full
one.
Size. Yeah, I have a fleet, personalized fleet of electric vehicles, but they're mostly Hot Wheels and Matchbox. But I do actually own a Chevy Volt, which is slightly different than the all electric that you guys are talking about. So my car is a plug-in hybrid electric, which means that I have a certain amount of electric vehicle range, all electric, and then when I run out of electricity in the battery, it switches over to the gasoline engine, and I can get another 400 miles on gasoline if I need it. But for the vast majority of my driving is all electric because I can get to work and back when we actually go into work and come back.
Which is a better design than the Honda Civic Hybrid that I used to own, which kind of alternated regularly between the electric engine and the gas engine. That was kind of a dual drive rather than a all one and then all the other that you've got, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah. So yours would have been designed for fuel economy because you never plug that one in, whereas
no.
the one I have is designed to go all electric for the vast majority of the time. But because it has that gas engine, I can, if I need to, I can drive to DC or to the mountains or to Iowa or wherever, and then when I get there, I can plug in and fill up. But we've had a number of times just in the last year where we are, the gasoline pipeline has had problems. One time because they had a big leak, and another time because they got hacked and shut down operations. And so there wasn't any gas. And so I was able to drive past all those gas stations where there's a big long line and go buy it. So
to that point, we are going to have to put a sign on the country that says, hackers, please hack the oil pipelines or the electricity grid, but please don't do both at the same time. Like take turns, line up in a, queue up in an orderly line here. We'll be fine. If you do both at the same time, we're going to have problems.
To my question, particularly personally about this thing, have you looked at this, Ford? Have you gotten information about it or heard anything about how Ford has gone through this process? And is 2022 the right time to buy that kind of car?
I do think so. If you haven't put down an order yet, I think it may be a while before you can get delivery because the response to the Ford F-150 Lightning has been just knocked it out of the ballpark is essentially what's happened. And it may take a year or two to get delivery because so many people have signed up.
Really?
But yeah, so, and it is, it's transformative. And, it's in the electric vehicle market, people, it's like, oh, we got to have different models and SUVs and cars and pickups. And the F-150 is pretty much the first one that's going to be mass market available. Rivian is coming out with another. Chevy just announced their Silverado.
Okay.
And then, there's some other stuff coming along, but the F-150 rollout was, I was calling it transformative, because of what they were doing, that you can actually, return the power to your house. So when your power goes out, which happens occasionally, you can supposedly power your house for 3 days. And if all you're doing is actually powering your heater and your refrigerator to make sure your food doesn't go bad, you can go quite a while just on the power from the truck.
I did see, because I'm on a Ford mailing list, or I'm on a lot of Ford mailing lists, I know how to build trucks, but not unsubscribe buttons. They said they had 200,000 reservations. Their original plan was to build 75,000 trucks a year. They just announced this week that they're going to double production to 150,000 a year. So if you're on the back end of the list, unless people who put reservations cancel, you won't be getting a truck in the next year. It will be another year out to clear just the backlog of the pre-orders before they actually even can get to new orders.
And a similar thing happened if you look at the Ford Mustang. They converted that to be an electric version and started taking orders. And in a typical year, the Ford sells 65 to 75,000 Mustangs. They're ramping up so that they can, because they've got orders to sell 150,000, which really tells you that there's a kind of a backlog of demand for electric vehicles like this.
Which I thought was pretty amazing, given that it looks absolutely nothing like a Mustang.
Yeah. The Mustang, the hardcore people. I had a 64 and a half Mustang back in the day.
Right. Yeah.
It's difficult, but I've got some friends who have been driving them for a while and very much have become converts.
Okay, so you said the word the F-150 Lightning. You use the word transformative. I have been thinking. By the way, I had a deposit down when the day that Tesla announced the Model 3. I stood in line at the Tesla dealership to give them money to get in line. And then eventually, after about a year, I gave back my interest-free loan. I got my interest-free loan to Elon Musk because he needed the money. I got that back, and I got out of line because I realized that, shockingly, and I think for the first time ever in Elon's illustrious career, some of the promises that he made when he took my money weren't looking like they were going to happen when I needed to give him more money. So I backed out. But so I've been paying attention a little bit to this space. This is my thought, and I'm curious actually because I'm just a Yahoo that follows this stuff, but doesn't really get into it too deep. I actually think that the F-150 Lightning on the increase might be the most important electric vehicle launch that we are going to see for a while, because it takes it from people who want electric cars or electric vehicles to the F-150 is sold as a work truck. It is selling the electric vehicle portion in many ways, not that it's better for the environment, but they're selling it. You can take it to a job site. You can power your things. You can power your house. And it's moving it from the people who want electric vehicles to the mainstream of saying, in this use case, your work truck would be better being electric. And so I think it's actually trying to draw in a whole group of people that would have never considered electric vehicles before.
that Todd's got a good point that they're marketing it not as a environmentalist vehicle. It's a work truck. That's a functional, truck. Dewayne can put a couple of sets of golf clubs. Other people have said, it's great storage for bodies, that type of thing in the front. But to Todd's point is, Tesla, when they were first coming out with their electric vehicles, their first stuff, they weren't marketing for the environmental conscious either. They were marketing towards performance, and so they came out with the Roadster, the Model S P100 or whatever it is that has the can go plaid essentially. That's the fastest production car ever built. It'll beat the $1 million Italian sports cars in the quarter mile. So, and the 0 to 60, and now Ford's coming out with the work truck. In another 10 years, you're probably not going to see too many non-electric vehicles because they'll just outcompete.
So, given that I live in Iowa, we've got a regular listener that we know lives in Minnesota where it gets to -18. In these kinds of weather extremes, what kind of impact does that have on electric vehicles? Is it work out here, not just in Southern California?
Yeah. And it doesn't get that cold here, but it works when it's below freezing for me on the electric. You will get a slightly reduced range, just like you do when you've got a gasoline car. You get fewer miles per gallon in the winter when it's really cold. Similarly, you'll get a little bit fewer miles on electricity. And one of the things that came up over the last week or so, you guys might have seen the traffic jam in Virginia heading to DC. Yeah. And there were groups who were like, I'd be petrified to be in an electric vehicle, and all the electric vehicle owners are like, well, wait a minute, no, I've got electric seat warmers. And a bunch of the electric vehicle nerds started doing experiments, and they're like, yeah, I kept my electric vehicle in the Michigan winter for 40 hours, and I lost like 4% of the battery charge, and keeping it at 65 degrees in the cabin. It was wild. Whereas a gasoline car, if it's parked and idling, they're using anywhere from a quarter to a half a gallon per hour. And, they'll run out of gasoline much faster than an electric vehicle will.
I think one thing we've learned over the last couple of years is whatever you do, don't come for the electric car nerds, because they will come back. And,
yes.
Don't kick that hornet's nest if you don't have to.
No, they won't beat you up, but they'll take you out in other ways.
Okay, so let's say I'm going to do this, right? And I know I've got 2 years to prepare for it. What kind of things can I do now for my house? Do I need to install special electric? Can I start working on solar to marry with this? Are there things that I can do while I'm waiting 2 years to get this car to show up?
Yeah, you can do all kinds of things. I'm assuming you've got a garage. I haven't seen your house, but if you've got a garage, I'm assuming you've got a standard 110 outlet. That'll be adequate for a lot of your needs. If you wanted to upgrade, you can have an electrician come out and put in a 220 outlet, and that actually, going from 110 to 220, you think it's going to be, that's twice as fast, but it's actually 3 to 4 times as fast. So it's just one of those weird things.
Boils water quicker too.
Yeah, that too. And one of the things, as part of the purchase process, Ford is offering to provide service companies to come out and install the higher end charging system in your home. I don't know what the fee is for that. And that they'll have to look at your breaker box to see if you have room. But if you've got a newer house, you usually have a little bit of room in your breaker box to add in that kind of.
I didn't plan to ask you this question, but it just jumped in my. obviously, when I pull it into the garage, I know the charging coupling is going to work because that's what I built. When I'm out on the road, are they all like USB-A ports? So they all absolutely definitely work with each other? Or are there 40 different ones out there and I've got to pray that I pull up to the right station? And further, answer that, but then also B, do I have to pay like I do at the gas station every time I fill up when I, go to the mall and charge it? How does that just explain it like I'm 5, Ward?
Oh, okay. Well, and to go back to what Todd was asking about fighting electric vehicle nerds, and the plug discussion is essentially a blood sport in this field. So if you want to see,
we just got toddler number -18's attention. Blood sport. Now I'm interested.
See, and this is again where Tesla did a good job because they call their stuff the supercharger. Harkens back to your old Hot Wheels days and stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas the other brands started out with a plug called the J1772, and really, it was designed by an electrician and engineer rather than that. But to go back to your question, the vast majority of the plugs you're going to see are going to be standardized now. And so the American domestic market is getting pretty solid. Just like when you go to fill up with your gasoline, you've got 3 different types of gasoline at the pump, and you choose which one you want. And if you accidentally put in diesel, that's still there, but you shouldn't do that. So you're still gonna have to be intelligent in what you're doing, and but usually for charging, it's going to be through a phone app. You come up to the EV charging, basically either a Tesla supercharger or a high voltage charger, and use your phone app and put your phone close to the thing. It'll release the plug, and you put that in your car. You wait 10 or 15 minutes, and you're probably going to be about 80% charged in 10, 15, 30 minutes.
Well, about long enough to listen to half of an episode.
Well, yeah, or go into McDonald's,
At one point when Lucas just started getting driving, he needed to fill up with gas, and he pulled in and he put E85 in our regular car because it was the cheapest one and because he's frugal.
How'd that work out?
And then realized about when he was done, he calls me, "Oh my God, Dad, what did I do?" I'm like, it's fine. You may get a light, but go drive it and we'll put more gas in it and drive it and we'll put more gas in it and drive it and we'll put more gas in it. It'll be fine. You're not going to hurt it doing it one time. Whatever. It'll burn it. Just don't do that again, dude. I mean,
I always wonder in the very, very early days of E85 that, Dewayne, you were around for, I was filling up one of the state vehicles with E85, and a guy pulled up, and he pulls in with his like Audi or something like that, and he starts filling his Audi with E85, and I'm like, "Oh, did you get that converted?" And he thought it was the diesel pump because it was set aside, and I'm like, I was able to stop him. He had like maybe 3 or 4 gallons in there of E85 in a diesel, and I have no idea how that worked out. That was in the 90s, so I don't. that would be an interesting experiment.
The German engineers like, we did not engineer for this. No. Was ist das? Was ist das?
Yeah, so that would have been. Oh yeah, that would have been before, because I worked for you in 98 and 99.
Okay.
And we did
worst
ethanol.
Decision of your life.
We did wind. I lasted 18 months before you guys finally got sick of me.
I didn't fire anybody over there, so yeah.
You didn't. You did not. I found another home. It was a good 18 months. I learned so much. It was great. It was a good time. I learned so much. And then I got.
Well, I was just going to ask you, how many injuries did you have in 18 months?
Well, that was predominantly why I had to move on, because I had a broken nose. I had to have my appendix out in an emergency surgery.
You hit your eye on the
oh yeah
filing cabinet.
That's right. Yeah, I turned around and I busted my eye open on the filing cabinet and had to have stitches there,
You got
all
hit by a
within a
golf
span.
ball.
I got hit by a golf ball. Seriously, all within the span of the same 18 months. At one point, they gave me, and you guys laughed so hard about this, Mercy Hospital gave me a frequent visitor card.
I still have that picture that you sent. I share that with some coworkers because they don't believe me when I tell them about Dewayne.
Oh, good times. Good times. Okay. Sorry, we have totally digressed into history and stuff. Other electric vehicle questions. This is not the only podcast that you do this on. Tell me about. Let's catch up a little bit. Tell me about your day job and other stuff that you do. I know you talk about electric vehicles elsewhere, not just us nerds.
So yeah, contrary to what Dewayne's career trajectory was of 18 months in clean energy, I've actually done my entire career. And so at the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, we do policy and education on all kinds of clean energy, whether it's energy efficiency or solar energy, which North Carolina, depending on who is tracking it, is anywhere from second to fourth in solar energy generation in the country.
Nice.
And then we do a lot on, I think I mentioned, energy efficiency, wind. We're actually starting to take bids for offshore wind, so that I know you guys in Iowa have lots of wind turbines. We don't have too much of that resource here on land. We got a little bit, but then offshore is going to be a monster over the next few years in development. And those turbines can be dramatically larger than the land-based turbines. So they'll be generating a lot of power and then wheeling that into the Carolinas and then up the East Coast.
Well, and I remember, when we were working together, it was like the first dozen or so wind turbines that were installed in the state of Iowa. And, and we managed one on the state fairgrounds that you started with. I inherited a little bit. Ed Woolsey was involved with it, right? Just tiny little guys. But even compared to the ones that we see today, the big, using air quotes, big Mid-American ones that they put up at that point are just dwarfed by what you're talking about.
Yeah, those are, if you can kind of put into scale, that one at the Iowa State Fair was 10 kilowatts.
Yeah.
Those big ones that Mid-American had put up back in the 90s were 600 kW, the kilowatts. Yeah. And the stuff I think that is kind of standard now is around 3 to 5 megawatts. So 10 times that. And then the offshore wind, I'm hearing reports that by the time those go in, they'll be 10 to 15 megawatts. So
each.
Just another order of magnitude.
Hey, Dewayne, if you're thinking about getting an electric truck, it'd be great if you could power it through a wind turbine. What kind of HOA permission would you need to put in a 10 to 15 megawatt wind turbine? You've got room in the backyard. You got a footprint for it. So what I'm just wondering, is that like architectural review? I bet you'd probably have to paint it a color so it would blend.
A, I do have space. B, believe it or not, there's actually a line in our HOA code that says I'm not allowed to put in solar on my house. Now, I say that, Casey Howe, 2 doors down, has put solar on his house. So when one of the things that I plan to do this week is message him and say, hey, Casey, how'd you do that? Did the HOA give you any flack? And find out whether or not he even consulted the HOA or if he just did it.
It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission on some of those things.
And it's the way we always operated.
Yeah. I mean, we've established that I'm not a lawyer, but just I'm gonna spitball this. There's a line that says you can't put solar on your house. What if you put solar on your neighbor's house and they put their solar panels on your house? I'm just,
you're so helpful.
We have similar issues here, and I am going to bring this up with our legal team and say I think we've got a workaround.
I'm just the idea guy, right? I just throw out the ideas. Like,
I swear I've been working on this for decades, and that is the first time that idea has ever come up.
It's not the first time I've ever heard that. Yeah, really. To be shockingly, it's not the first time I've heard that.
So, but to bring this back, to bring this all back to a close, if you had today a need for a car in 2 years, is this a car you would buy or plan to buy? Is this worth my time? Again, it's one of the things that I asked at the outset. Is now the time to do this? Have we reached a point where the common person, not just energy experts, former energy near experts, Todd,
dilettantes?
Yes, thank you. Anybody, it's time to start moving in this direction. Are we ready?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's meeting your needs for a vehicle. It is time. The market's here. The transformation's happened. There's millions of electric vehicles on the road today. So this is no longer a new niche technology. It's ready. I'm probably looking at the Mustang in another year or two. That the F-150 Lightning's gonna probably really be big in the work truck industry, and especially if you got golf clubs in it.
So before we go though, Ward, I believe this. I think Dewayne, you started down this road and then you swerved, keeping you on track.
Good metaphor.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for. Just bring it back in. I think you mentioned Ward. This is not your only podcast appearance, though.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Hey, that's where I was going to go with this. What else yeah.
Well, to be frank, I have generally avoided podcasts myself. But my organization actually does a podcast. It's called the Squeaky Clean Energy Podcast. And we generally do pretty good. And we have, we've had the secretary of, or the administrator for Environmental Protection Agency. We've had governor on. We've actually had an NBA All-Star on. And I actually did my first of those podcasts this morning. So that podcast actually on electric vehicles and what the governor in North Carolina has done on an executive order for electric vehicles. We recorded that this morning. That'll be published about the same time as this one. So take a listen to the Squeaky Clean Energy Podcast. I let the folks on ours know to look up Talking to Todd and kind of do some cross efforts. We'll see how that goes.
You should have probably ran that past legal first, but okay, that's cool. Not because we're going to be sued. They're going to be like, I don't think we can. Like,
yeah, we've listened to 5 minutes of this. We can't possibly. No, yeah, no.
This is not cleared.
No. Well, that's one of the fun things. I'm executive director there, so who are they going to get mad at?
So one of the things we normally do, we do feedback and follow up. We do a couple other things, but we always close with something that we learned this week. Todd always brings something. I always bring something. I gave you a warning, Ward, that, hey, this is a regular segment, Twill. This week I learned. Did you bring something that you learned? And it doesn't have anything to do, it doesn't have to have anything to do with electric vehicles or beating me in the league championship or anything, really. It can just be, anything that you learned this week that you thought our listeners might be interested to learn, or that Todd can riff off of generally? Did you learn anything this week?
Yeah. So, Todd's always into the music and stuff. So the thing I learned this week, and thanks for the heads up on the segment. I have listened to the podcast before. I just didn't remember that part of it. So one of the things I learned this week, or maybe in the last 2 weeks, hope you'll allow that, is that I always thought LaGrange was a song by ZZ Top, but it turns out that the Lagrange point is a point in space, and there's actually 5 of them around Earth that are essentially stable gravitationally. And so that's where the James Webb Space Telescope that was launched a few weeks ago is headed. And it's about 75% of the way there. That's where it'll be parked, so that it's far enough away from Earth, but in a stable orbit. And so it doesn't need to use any fuel, supposedly, to keep itself stable. And so it's just this weird anomaly of gravity that the gravity nerds, or whatever you would call the gravity nerds, astrophysicists, have developed and managed to plant a spacecraft out there.
Dewayne,
I've been told I'm not allowed to sing on this podcast.
The sad thing about all of this is, Dewayne, as he's explaining this, you're like, the look on your face was, wait, what? And I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, the Webb telescope's going to L2. That's the one it's going to. Common knowledge.
Everybody knows that,
except Dewayne. It's just clearly not in my wheelhouse.
And I'm sure every one of your listeners is very familiar with Lagrange points.
So
I think you can get.
Was ZZ Top sing? Hold on. What was ZZ Top singing about then?
That's a town in Texas.
Oh, okay. That's the one that I knew, because I've actually driven through there.
I was going to say Lagrange, isn't it? Can you get a good maid right there? I think you've just tried. Oh, that might be LeGrand. Never mind. Sorry. Iowa towns. There's a lot of them. It's kind of hard to keep track of all of them. Yeah, I don't know. We're going to go get the maid right at the LaGrange point. Yeah, that's fine. Sure.
I was in LeGrand last night. Actually, I was reffing in LeGrand last night.
How lucky for them.
Yes. It was okay, so Tech Corner. I had Ward, do you remember Aaron Thomas?
I do.
Played basketball?
Yeah. So he played softball with us too, I think.
Right? Aaron is now the head basketball coach for Appleton Parkersburg.
No way.
I had him last night coaching Appleton Parkersburg at East Marshall in LeGrand. Final score was 98-27. We were out early.
So he's a good coach then.
He's very good. I have to say, I didn't feel like we got the entire Aaron Thomas experience because he wasn't in our ear the entire night.
You didn't need to be.
Yeah, and he didn't need to be. We had him 2 years ago, Wapsie Valley at AP, and it was like number 1 versus number 3 in the state. Just a fantastic ball game. Classic coaches. Marty, the old coach from Wapsie Valley, was in our ear the entire time. So was Aaron. Just knock down, drag out the entire night. So much fun. But yeah, Aaron Thomas, saw him last night in LeGrand, not LaGrange. Sorry,
well,
sidetrack.
Yeah, if you see him again, say hi for me, but don't bring up LaGrange or LeGrand or yeah.
I'm gonna warn Dewayne. I'm gonna warn you and our listeners. Now that Ward has broken the seal on using this podcast to talk about stuff we learned about space.
Oh, sweet Lord!
Oh, have I got some stuff for the next few? I mean, I see behind Ward. I see you got a model of an orbiter up there. Yeah.
So I need to interrupt real quick and probably apologize to all your listeners for breaking the seal. And Dewayne, we said that he was going to feel it for inviting me, and here we go.
50 words or less, toddlers. 50 words or less.
I mean, the stuff I've got next week to talk about the SLS system is just amazing. So it'll be great.
Kevin, we're going to need some editing time. Book that in the studio, please. God. How about you, Todd? Did you learn anything this week?
Yeah. I learned that my banking information may have been hacked. I learned that through an email sent to me by my bank. However,
my bank?
No, not your bank.
Okay, good.
My bank.
Good.
However,
because we don't talk about work on this podcast.
So here is the email. I'm gonna. You know what, Ward? You've got a degree in journalism. So you've probably heard the word burying the lead, which in journalism is considered a bad thing.
Usually.
And in PR, it seems to be the point. The subject line of the email to grab your attention is deposit and loan statement availability. Well, that's boring. Who's going to read that? You know what? I will. So first paragraph lets me know that your deposit and loan statements generated between December 27th and 29th, 2021 are currently unavailable. Okay. Well, that happens in computers, right? You never know. You may still access your account balances and transaction information through our online and mobile banking services. Oh, okay, cool, because I assumed I could. Second paragraph. Let's explore this a little further. All electronic payments and deposits to your accounts during this time were processed without interruption. Again, that's not news. That's what I expect from my bank. Why are you emailing me? And then everything, according to this email, everything happened without interruption. Here's the next line. As a courtesy, we will refund any insufficient fund fees that we may have charged to your account deposits between December 23rd and December 29th. So, recap, some statements aren't available. Okay. Everything is fine. Yes. And we may have charged you some insufficient fund fees. Okay. Which
you're not able to determine because the statements aren't available.
Because I can't see the statement. Yeah. Well, that sounds terrible. Paragraph 3. Our vendor who produces your account statements and notices for us very recently notified us that they experienced a system intrusion. They have advised us that while they are unaware of any compromise of our customer information, they have nonetheless implemented a series of containment measures and initiated a forensic investigation. As a strong account management practice, we recommend you closely monitor your account balances and consider enrolling in our account alert services. Now, in order for me to monitor my account, I'm going to need to look up some statement. Oh, God. So, anyway, there you go. From deposit and loan statement availability, subject line, to we may have accidentally charged you some stuff that we shouldn't have, and all of your banking information may be compromised. If you have any questions, please feel free. Sincerely, President and CEO. So, anyway, not a great email to get from your bank, but it's a PR masterpiece.
Are you guys? Are you allowed to swear on the podcast?
I mean, we can do anything we want. We generally Dewayne inserts a cuckoo clock noise so that we don't have to put the explicit tag on because Apple will come for us.
Okay. In PR terms, that's I won't use the term, but it's an S sandwich where you have your bread, you have the S, and then you have more bread. So
it is, except, and I agree with you, except your statements aren't working. You're insufficient. We charged you when we shouldn't have, and all of your information has been leaked.
It's 3 layers of S is what that is.
It's all S, no sandwich. Dewayne, how about you? What'd you learn this week?
Not just this week, but today I learned that I tested positive for COVID. We've been getting feedback from our listeners that we need to be more positive on this podcast? I'm positive. Tested positive today. Yeah. We had, so Friday night, we had the Ackley boys at the Eldora boys, boy-girl doubleheader. We had just as background. Last night, I'm sitting in the stands talking to the AD from Legrand, and I ask him, how's your week going? What are you doing this week? Blah, blah, blah. You got a game on Friday night. He says, well, we only have one game on Friday night. Ackley's supposed to come to town, but it's just going to be the girls because the boys have COVID. And I said, really? Boys have COVID? And he says, yep, I'm not letting them in our building. I said, oh, okay.
Apropos of nothing, I have to leave.
Ooh, look at the time. And I drove. I could have done that. And then, as it turned out, not only did I have Ackley at South Hardin on Friday night, but then on Monday night, I had South Hardin at Iowa Falls. So I could have been exposed by Ackley on Friday, or, you got 3 days worth of incubation between Ackley and South Hardin before I then had South Hardin on Monday night at Iowa Falls, which is where I grew up. I grew up I grew up sitting on the bench in that gym.
They let you ref in Iowa Falls?
They do.
I wouldn't do that.
I asked my assigner years and years ago. I asked my assigner about this. I said, Chuck, should I go? Is it a bad idea to go ref at the high school where I played high school? I said, and Chuck says, and I quote, just don't suck. And you don't suck. So you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Go do it. Now, I will say I won't do a playoff game. I won't do any postseason that has Iowa Falls involved, but a regular season game, whatever.
As I remember being on the freshman basketball team in Iowa Falls with you, that was the same advice we got from the coaches there. Just don't suck. So and I did, which is why I didn't continue. So yeah.
Funny story. Randy Fiskus was in the crowd on Monday night. Saw him walk in the gym. So saw Todd Bickneys, saw Jennifer Bickneys, saw a whole bunch of people. Got yelled at by all of them. It was a fantastic night. Anyway, so Ackley to South Hardin to Iowa Falls. And then one of my three partners texted the other two of us this morning and said, hey, I don't feel all that well. I'm kind of sniffly. I kind of got a headache. I kind of got a scratchy throat. And I said, well, that doesn't sound good. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go get tested. And given that we had spent 90 minutes in the car together last night, 90 minutes in the car together the night before, he's like, you guys probably ought to go get tested too. And me, I don't feel bad. I mean, yeah, my throat's a little scratchy, but I mean, it's that time of year. Do I feel tired? Yeah, I'm running 3 to 5 miles a night up and down the basketball court. So yeah, am I tired? Yeah, sure, I'm tired. So this morning I grabbed the rapid test, 3 minutes, boom. The other thing that I learned this week, how fast those tests actually show up, the rapid tests actually show up when you really have COVID. It takes no time at all for that thing to show up and test positive. I learned all kinds of stuff this week. I also learned what areas of the house my wife will and will not let me go into. I'll have more on this next week.
I will say for all the listeners, Dewayne did let me know ahead of time today. And he's like, hey, bad news. And then we had some back and forth conversations. I was just in our text message. I was as supportive of Dewayne as you would have expected. There were significant number of jokes at his expense, many of which don't pass the explicit tag for this podcast. But don't worry, I've taken care of Dewayne. He's heard a good portion of them now.
I'm your host in more ways than one. I want to note for the record, I have been incredibly healthy for the last 20 years. And as soon as we book Ward to come on this podcast.
You see what you're saying? Yep. Mm-hmm.
I guess I was assuming this was a tryout and I was going to take over the podcast after this.
If things don't go well next week, you could be talking to Todd. Okay. Before we go, we got a quick drop in here what we're watching. We'll jump into what we're watching here quick. Todd, do you watch anything this week?
Yep, Rue's back. So season 14, yes, last week started. So there you go. Boom, Rue's back.
You already watched it? We didn't watch it together? I thought we were going to watch this together.
Well, we were going to, and then we'd have to do VH1 together, and then the connect the dots, and then the thing, and here's the thing. I think there's going to be 75 queens on this season, so we've got time. We can watch some of this stuff together because it's going to take a while.
Are there any surprises that I need to be prepared for on episode 1?
Apparently, at least one of the queens is actually a man. I know. Who knew? Maybe more than one.
Didn't see this coming.
I can also tell you that they did not film this in Webster County. So,
okay. I never saw an outcome on the Eagle Grove New Year's Day thing, so I don't know. Feedback to come there, toddlers. We'll follow up on that.
What about you? You seem very, very eager. I mean, this is after the close, but you really want to talk about what we're watching. So, what did you watch?
On Saturday, I got invited to go see American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story.
Oh, sorry. For a second when you said that, here I come to save the day. No, different one. Sorry, no, not that.
That's Mighty Mouse. There's no need to fear. Underdog is here. That's the one you were thinking of.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yes. Sorry.
So the movie opens. White letters on black screen that says, based on a true story. This should have been the tip-off for me. Because it opens with the University of Northern Iowa playing a home game outdoors.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as you said that, I'm like, I bet you it's outdoors, isn't it? Yep. Okay.
And at which point, and I went with Felderman. Felderman calls me, hey, do you want to go see this? I'm like, sure. I'll go. And I look at Felderman. Dude, they lost me already. Seriously. And at which point, don't get me wrong. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 6. Which is about what Rotten Tomatoes gives it overall. Right? It's fine. But I mean, seriously, it was all I could do. And you know what? If you grew up in New York, or if you grew up in Florida, or if you grew up in God knows where, Kurt Warner is almost exactly the same age as we are. We grew up together in Iowa at this same time. Graduated from college. You graduated from the same college he did at the same time. Let me ask you this. Was there a grain elevator on campus for him to throw footballs against?
Well, I want to say
I'll
no.
Take that as an.
But now that you say it's in the film, I'm questioning my own memories. Wait, they put a grain elevator on campus of a university?
Within walking distance of where he lived, and seriously, he pulls up in his car. As much detail as they got right on the Barnstormers uniforms and the helmets with the goggles on the front of the helmets, right? And the wings on the shoulders and whatnot. They couldn't spend the same amount of detail to get the license plate right for the state of Iowa. Seriously.
Okay. Question. When he's played in the Barnstormers, was that indoors?
It was.
Okay.
It was And they said it's at the barn, which we all know is Veterans Memorial Auditorium, but they showed a blimp shot up above of Wells Fargo Arena. As they've got him in the basement at Vets, ready to do his first introduction, he walks down the tunnel underneath, which seems fairly accurate. Fine, whatever. It's kind of underneath. And he looks to his right, and there's a rodeo going on. And he turns to his left, and he walks down the ramp onto the field for introductions. That doesn't work like this.
It's not that big. So
at one point in the movie, there was a sprinkling of snow that was described as the worst blizzard in decades. And I'm looking at this blizzard going, okay, whatever. I mean, maybe if you're in Dallas, if you grew up in Phoenix, this looks awful. I'm like, okay, whatever. The roads weren't drifting. There weren't. I mean, seriously, people. They made Jim Foster, who was the original owner of the Barnstormers, not just the owner, but the head coach. Does anybody remember John Gregory? John Gregory remembers John Gregory. He clearly did not exist in this film. Such a slight. John Gregory was a fantastic man. He just totally disappeared from this movie. Somehow, at some point, I'm fast forwarding here through the movie, Brenda, Kurt's wife, manages to make her way to the Rams locker room in the basement of what was at that point, I believe, the TWA Dome in St. Louis.
Yep.
How in the world does into the Rams locker room? I later read that kiss happened out in the hallway. It did actually happen. It just didn't happen in the locker room. How difficult is it to just put them out in the hallway to kiss rather than having it in the locker room? Seriously, it just defies belief. Also, and this is just a little point, Dick Vermeil never cried in the movie. Have you ever seen Dick Vermeil not cry? They've got Mike Martz. You remember Mike Martz, right? Mike Martz, offensive guru. Yes. Offensive guru for the Bears for a while. Do you remember anything about Mike Martz?
Mostly what I remember about him. Yes, he was was he the offensive coordinator for Vermeil and then took over from him later. He was kind of full of himself, but yeah.
They got that right. They actually got right. Of the things that they got right, that was one of them. I've gone on way longer than I promised to on this, but God, this movie just drives me so crazy. Seriously, get ready. Warner, quote from Warner, "Every scene in this movie is as real as you get, and that was important to us." Now, there's always going to be some Hollywood in how we tell that story, some creative license. Really, Kurt? What did I watch this week? I watched American Underdog. Would I recommend it? Hell no!
Wait. Just going to say this. From what I heard from you, if you know nothing about Iowa, the Midwest, winter weather, football, you may enjoy it more.
At one point, he's playing in Des Moines for the Iowa Barnstormers. She's in Cedar Falls. It's so far away. It's so far. You're so far away from me. Lady, it's 90 minutes. Get in the car. This movie drives me so crazy. Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. If you know nothing about Iowa or the 90s or Hy-Vee, they did get the Hy-Vee logo right from 1993. Credit there. Again, can't get the license plate right. But I'm not caught up on the details. If you know absolutely nothing about nothing or anything, yes, I'm sure you'll really, really enjoy it.
I do wonder. So you're telling of this of maybe getting a few details wrong about an entire university campus, blizzards, etc. I'm gonna have to go look. I may have shared this story in here before. At one point, for a couple of seasons, we were watching Kiefer Sutherland on 24 when that was a thing. And we watched this. Lisa watched a couple more seasons than I did. We were watching I think we watched a season or two, and then we watched the next season, and we're watching it. And some terrorists had stolen a truck that was carrying a nuclear missile, and they had in Illinois and they drove west, and they made it across the Mississippi River, and then somebody yells, get this image up on satellite, and this line is uttered. We lost satellite pictures in the mountains.
If only somebody just had a map.
They lost the satellite image because the truck is in the mountains of eastern Iowa. And this is what happened. I looked at Lisa. I reached down. I picked up the remote. I turned the TV off. And we never watched I didn't watch the end of that episode, and we never watched an episode of 24 again. Because that was a throwaway line. But if you are so damn lazy to use mountains in Iowa as a plot point, I don't have time for you. Apparently, it is good to know, though, that what they didn't do is say we lost them in the University of Northern Iowa football stadium, because, well, I would have assumed that makes sense because it's closed in with the roof. According to American Underdog, it's an open air stadium. That wouldn't make sense either.
Don't go see this movie, people. Don't. Unless you know nothing about Iowa or football or anything.
Oh, you know what that means? I mean, if you can't watch it, if you should only watch it if you know nothing about football, I'm thinking Matt Nagy's got time. Maybe he should watch.
The music is Happy Boy by Kevin MacLeod. It's available on Incompetech.com under a Creative Commons Attribution license. You can subscribe to Talking to Todd on Overcast or Apple Podcast or Spotify or Podbean, wherever you get your pods. If you don't know how to find us, just search Talkin' and the number 2. There's no G and there's no space. We do have a page on Facebook. You can tweet us on Facebook. Pretty sure that's how it works. You can check out our 2-time award-winning merch on Zazzle. You can leave us a voicemail at 515 also CPA. That's 515-257-6272. Support for the editing of this podcast was brought to you by Toddlers 3187, number 17. You can stop by and see us at the Tuba City home office. Please don't do that. The website, as always, is talkingtotodd.com. Thanks to our listeners, especially the new ones. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Ward Lenz, for joining us. Please tell your friends, send us your feedback to feedback@talkingtotodd.com. Todd?
Hey, Ward. Look, just, I don't know. Dewayne doesn't look good on the camera. I mean, I'm hoping for the best, but here's my thoughts. So next week we talk about SLS. The week after that, we go to the Artemis project. Then we talk about Starship. And then the one I'm really interested in about 4 weeks is we talk about what it's going to take to deorbit the ISS safely, because they've already put Oh, Dewayne, you're still on. Oh, that's never mind. I mean, I'm glad you're still here. Seriously, Ward, give me a call. We'll get this going.
We're on it.
The best part about this is that if I'm not here, I don't have to edit that shit. But if I am here, we'll talk about that and all kinds of other stuff right here on Talking to Todd.
I also see, Ward, behind you. You have, I don't know if it's full. I can't tell the scale, but you have an original Mac.
Yeah, a Mac.
You do? Is that from the Mac in the Room program?
Yeah. That's a Drake version.
So, Dewayne, I'm just going to say we just missed out on an opportunity, because literally that Mac is in the corner of his bookcase. That's literally Tech Corner.
If only, again, here you are, visual jokes on an audio medium.
It is our specialty.
Yeah, I thought I was going to get out all my Hot Wheels electric vehicles, and I realized that people wouldn't be able to see them if I held them up. So
this was great. Thanks for coming on. This was really super.
This was fun. I appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully, it's interesting for folks. But yeah, it was fun. Thank you.